Sometimes when you're knitting something, you need to join seams. Either you need to join a side seam to a side seam, an end to an end, or sometimes an end to a side. I'm going to talk about 3 very basic joins using 2 techniques, and we're going to start with what would be a shoulder seam. Shoulder seams take the most pressure because the whole sweater hangs from them, but this seam can be used anywhere that an end or a bind off meets a bind off, or a cast on meets a cast on for that matter. We're going to do bind off meet bind off. Put your pieces so that the bind off edges are abutting and the pieces are face up. Usually on your bind off, there's a sort of weird loopy stitch. Come up through that weird loopy stitch. Don't tie a knot. Come over here, and you'll notice that there are V's pointing to the bind off. There is a V, and there's a V. That would be your first V. You want to go through the 2 that point toward the bind off, not these 2 here like this where they point down and away from the bind off. That's not where you want to go. You'd want to go here and here, not under those 2. So go under the 2 legs of this stitch, then come back here, go back into that hole where you came up, and go under the 2 legs of the V pointing toward the bind off on this side. Come back, pick up the 2 legs of the V pointing toward the bind off, come back here, go into that same hole under the 2 legs of the V pointing toward the bind off, over here into the same hole under the 2 legs pointing toward the bind off. Continue in this manner until you have done a number of stitches or several centimeters of the seam. Then, holding the end that you started at and pulling on the end with the needle, you're going to pull all those stitches taut and they will just disappear. Like magic. You will see lovely uninterrupted lines of stitching from one piece to the other. Continue working as before. At the end, make sure you pick up those slightly untidy stitches and afterward go into the fabric opposite the last stitch. Pull the last bit taut and you have a lovely seam. The lines go from one to the other nice and cleanly. And the back is flat, smooth, well, as flat and smooth as this thick yarn can make, and the stitches from the seaming yarn disappear entirely. That is an end-to-end join.